Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Olafadike Akeju, as you all know, and I'd like to wish each and every one of you a successful and progressive year. Welcome to today's Slack Africa's Gaming Industry Outlook 2026. Where we will be looking at regulatory forecast, market trends, and tax reforms. Thank you again for joining us for this timely and practical discussion. As we begin 2026, the Nigerian gaming industry is navigating a convergence of regulatory, tax, reporting, and compliance developments that will materially impact how we do business in the year ahead. Now, some of the changes that has occurred are: one, Nigeria successfully last year exited the Financial Action Task Force grey list, which has now signaled heightened expectations around anti-money laundering and counter financing of terrorism effectiveness and governance standards. Additionally, we had the ruling of the Supreme Court, and then the subsequent declaration by the president that the proposed central gaming bill will not be passed as it violates the Constitution of Nigeria. While this declaration has resolved a key regulatory issue, there is also the matter of the universal reciprocity license, which is proposed by the Coalition of State Gaming Regulators of Nigeria. This leaves important questions around jurisdiction, the oversight of the online channel, and regulatory coordination. These questions are unresolved, and today we would attempt, to get updates on them and manage our expectations in terms of how to proceed. Now, on the fiscal front, I'm sure we're all aware that there has been tax reforms and the passage of the Nigerian Tax Act 2025, which introduces new compliance pressures and cost considerations for gaming operators. Some of these include the impact of the withholding tax on winnings, the impact of the withholding tax on commission, how this will affect operators' market share, and the competitive advantage that it seems to grant remote operators, along the broader challenges of how to report, how to deduct, and how to enforce these new guidelines. Financial reporting and governance expectations are also tightening beyond the tax reforms, with the Financial Reporting Council of Nigeria's focus on internal control over financial reporting, and also the classification of gaming operators who qualify as public interest entity. There is increased scrutiny on control, transparency, and audit readiness. Over the next hour, our panel of legal, tax, and compliance professionals will attempt to unpack these developments, what it means for you and your business in practical terms, and how they affect operations, market behavior, consumer engagement, and of course, how to manage the risk associated with this. What should you, as stakeholders, prioritize to remain compliant, to remain resilient and competitive in 2026? So once again, please join me to welcome our speakers, and we also welcome you, our participants today. A few housekeeping rules. Please note that this session is being recorded, and we hope that we have your consent to do so. If you do not want this to be recorded as part of this session, although we're not, the cameras are disabled, so we do not see you. You may please feel free to exit. We are all muted at the moment. Please, let's keep it that way through the session so we can have, an enjoyable conversation. And if you have questions, please drop your questions in the comment or chat box and we will try to attend to them. Now, without much ado, I will be introducing our speakers for today. I would like to start with our dear Director General of the Oyo State Gaming Board, Mr. Olajide, Honorable Olajide Boladuro is here today with us. Also, Mrs. Folashade Oluwasoya will be joining us. She is the she's a compliance and financial risk expert and financial crime risk specialist, actually, and she'll be joining us today. We're also joined by the head of tax compliance of Wise Concept and Associates, Mr. Adedoyin Oriadetu. Bimpe Akingba is here. She's the head of responsible gaming at PowerTech. We also have Adewale Akode, the head of legal and compliance, KC Gaming Networks Limited, Bet Niger, as we know them to be. Also, today we have Mrs. Bemisola Uduwole. She's a tax and compliance specialist, and she is the founder of Tax Gist with Madam Compliance, where she discusses and highlights compliance matters around taxation, making it easy for the average man to understand. So without much ado, we'll go right into it because, we're conscious of time and would like to get the most of this session. I will start with Honorable Jide Boladuro. We had the president's declaration, in December with respect to the proposed central gaming bill. Now, that puts to rest one issue, one arm of the issue in terms of state or federal regulation of gaming. However, the universal reciprocity license has been a proposal and was proposed to launch this year. Would like for you to highlight for us what is the current status of the URL framework, what are the licensing requirements, and then how do we plan to implement this? I know that you are also the VP of the Federation of State Gaming Regulators, so you're well positioned to educate us on this. You have the floor, sir.
So good morning, everyone, and happy New Year to you all, to the panelists and the participants. Yes, as far as the URL goes, the Federation of State Gaming Regulators is well positioned. Starting this month, actually, we held a meeting a couple of days ago, and what we have resolved to do, or what we have resolved to do even in the past, is just that we held that meeting just to dot the I's and cross the T's and ascertain the way forward and how everything is going to kick off. So the URL is here to stay. So what that actually entails is we have resolved that we will issue one license to various operators in the areas of sports betting, casino, and promotional lottery. Lotto is not part of the URL. We still give that privy to various states to issue Lotto license. There's no a whole lot of Lotto companies. So basically, this is for sports betting, online sports betting, casino, promotional engagements, such as the multinational companies that do promotions all across the states, like the likes of the MTN and various telcos and banks that do all these things. So the URL, the way it's going to work is we will have a portal. Okay, framework will be sent to. I think we're releasing some sort of a communique next week, and the regulatory framework of how things are going to be done will also be released to the public and also in the to AMB and also other prospective operators that want to come into the country so that they know what portal to go to and do their registration online. That registration, however, will be approved by, so there's a chairman and there's a vice chairman in the other 6 geopolitical zones in the country, northwest, southwest, south, as the case may be. So we'll go through it and we'll give an approval. Once an approval is given by the ESCO, which we call them of that FSGRN, then the license will be issued. And this also goes for monitoring, enforcement, and but the GGR, which is the gross gaming revenue, will be paid directly to states by various operators. It's only the license that brings us together. But as far as enforcement and other things go, we'll make sure that um, if somebody is, if someone has a license and you are paying Lagos State or Taraba State, as the case may be, there. I mean, you have a license, then you're making sure that you're paying Lagos State GGR, you're also paying to Kogi, you're paying to Ondo, based on what your um I mean your is it gross your yeah your commission is on a monthly basis to those various states as well. So that's it, because once you're under that net of being issued a URL, then you are making yeah I mean you are subjected to compliance in all those states that are part of the federation. So in a nutshell, that's it. We will roll out all the. I mean, it's I won't say it's preliminary because we already have the what was that again? The template that we were given to work with, and the site that I mean for registration is already ready. So we rolled that out, and I think the license copy is also ready as well. And so I think basically that's what it is for now. If there are any questions, I'm sure I'll be able to attend to the screen. But in the nutshell, that's what the URL is all about.
Okay, thank you very much for that update. So what we have is that the URL is definitely going live, maybe in by February, or
Yes, by February.
we will be notified following the communique. Now, can we get an indication of what the fees? We hear you saying that Lotto will still be regulated at state level by each state. So operators who are interested should get their licenses from the relevant state. But can you give us an indication of what the license fee would be? Has that been agreed for the products that or the verticals that will be covered under the URL? And also, how many states are members are covered, by this URL license?
Okay, great question. So, I mean, you know the way me I am, I'll say the way it is. It's not hidden. So the license fee for sports betting is 100 million. The license fee for casino is 100 million. I think the
Per
license fee for
annum?
promotional 100 million. Yeah, per year. So the license fee for sports betting is 100 million. 26 states, I believe, are currently under the URL. You know the challenges we have with the northern states. Some of them they would not want to commit due to the religious angle of things when it comes to lottery and gaming and whatever, what have you. So, but 100 million is the the actual fee that we will be charging for that um, license, and it's renewable annually.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. 26 states, 100 million, sports betting, and casino,
Correct.
respectively.
Mhm.
Okay. In terms of the tax rate, the monthly gaming tax, do we have an indication of what this will be?
Okay, sure. Again, so I think we've had series of meeting in the past in 2025 regarding what the monthly taxes would be, and I think we went back and forth, and there was a few resistance, and we have resolved to peg that as of 2 days ago when we had that meeting to 10% of the commission. So 10% is what we have agreed to, and this is based on share market value that we have done all across various markets in Africa, and I think that's fair. So 10% is of the commission is what we are going to be requesting from our various operators, both current and incoming operators, as far as what is going to be paid to stay. And again, this is based on what business that you do. What you do in Lagos is not what you do in Kogi, of course. So, but 10% across the board is what we've agreed on.
Okay, all right. This is noted.
So
Now, for
there
operators,
should be no ambiguity, because I know that there's a lot of talks out there. Some people will say, oh, 5%, some laws and all that, but 10% is what the FSG and agreed on.
okay, all right. So, for operators who choose, now you have said there's an allowance for operators to get lottery license and engage directly with the state regulators. Now, if we then, as a business, decide that operators want to get licenses, maybe for sports betting or casino, also from a state or a few states, we've do they have that luxury, and how does that impact, or what are the allowances that is being made under the URL?
Okay, so that's not going to be feasible, in the sense that every uh company that does sports betting, which is the main thing that we're talking about here actually, they're online. So if you say you want to go and get licensed in Ekiti, and I can access your site in my state, it's not going to work. So the only way is the URL. You can't go to Ondo now and say you want to go and get a license in Ondo, because you just want to operate predominantly in Ondo. It's not going to work. As long as you have a website and other states can access that site, you have to get the URL.
Okay.
If you are saying you are doing specify that you are not going live online, maybe that can work. And I think that option was discussed as well. So, but it has to be strictly retail. We know that you don't have any kind of online representation. Then you can actually approach a state that will be verified by FSGRN. But in a case where we find out that you have a site where people can actually go and log in and transact, then I mean, we will shut you down. It's not going to happen.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for that. Very quickly, I will just move on to Folashade now. Welcome. Um, we're going to be talking about now we're moving to compliance. We've heard from the industry regulator. Now we're moving to compliance, anti-money as relates to anti-money laundering, and risk management, particularly. We all know that Nigeria exited from the fat gray list last year, which was great. And, I'm also aware that the gaming industry was one of the sectors that were, maybe identified as high risk. Now that we are off that list, what are the AML expectations for gaming operators, and how has this evolved from what it used to be, at the time when we were on the gray list? And what practical changes should operators be making to their AML frameworks, or, just to align with the level of scrutiny that will be in place going forward? Also, how does this removal from the gray list, what does it do for, the gaming industry, for instance? How does it benefit us?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be part of this discussion. I just wanted to be clear, I'm speaking today as an independent compliance professional and in my personal capacity, not as any government representative. So the views I share are professional opinions and based on public available frameworks and international standards. You've asked actually a very much a loaded question, Fadike. If we look at it, it's like a whole thing in I'd have to break it down in a couple of parts to be able to discuss it. And it
Go
would take
ahead.
it quite at length. I thought that during these discussions, I would make a very small presentation, which would answer all these questions. But you have decided that you want it done in discussion. So First of all, Nigeria coming out of a grey list, I have to say kudos to all the government agencies that were involved. It was a cohesive and very much a collaborative effort, as well as you, the gaming operators, all the DNFBPs that were involved. Everybody really, really did their best. We all made it a national pride and not necessarily a competitor's mode, which is what you're normally used to. So I'm very, very happy about that. And it has given us great strides, especially when you look at it from an investor's point of view. What we need to first understand is from a global perspective. Let's take it from the global perspective, the FATF perspective. Financial Action Task Force, for those of us that don't know what the FATF is, consistently have classified gaming and betting activities as high risk for designated non-financial businesses and professions. This classification is driven by certain factors. First of all, high transaction volumes, rapid movement of funds, customer anonymity, the increasing use of digital and cross-border payment channels. So as a result, the FATF expectations have evolved from a focus on the existence of policies to an emphasis on risk-based controls. When we say risk-based, we all know that risk-based is because we all have limited resources. We have to look at what, will pose a greater risk to your organization. For the Nigeria context, the country's exit from the FATF grey list marks an important milestone. However, it does not end scrutiny. Rather, it places a greater emphasis on sustaining AML CFT effectiveness across high sectors such as betting and gaming. It's also important to note that the national risk assessments are living tools, and Nigeria is expected to undertake a review and an update of its national risk assessment as part of its ongoing efforts to reflect emerging risk. So when we say national risk assessment, we know that there was a national risk assessment done in 2021, the mutual evaluation was done. And what that does is, because we know money laundering and terrorism financing is an evolving crime, we call it is highly dynamic. What they're doing today is not what they're doing tomorrow, and most of the time, the law seems like as if it's playing catch up. So what this risk assessment does, because the FATF is very, very much based on, when you look at it, recommendation 1 talks about effective risk-based approach and if the effectiveness of doing that. Even the FATF has tried as much as possible to move as the crime changes. When it first started, the FATF was 40 recommendations. When it was in 2001, we had September 11th happen. They had 40 recommendations, which was based primarily on money laundering, and then added the 8 recommendations for terrorism financing. So we had 40 plus 8. But now it's evolved to combining both of those into now 40 recommendations. So as you understand, the law is constantly progressing. Same you can say with Nigerian law. If you look at the Nigerian-based context, we had 2004, we had 2011, it was amended in 2013, and now we have 2022 to reflect our own risk assessment and our own challenges based on the economic typography. So when we talk about the effectiveness of us leaving the grey list, it's fantastic, because now for an investor, an international investor, when you look at Nigeria, what you're trying to say is that we're now better at controlling the risks to money laundering and terrorism financing. And before, we were scoring very low. But now, as an international investor, you now know that, okay, these guys have something in place, or they have good things in place to protect their investment. For you as a regulator, we have to look at, talking as a betting operator or a gaming operator, what it generally means is that we have to talk about the culture. For gaming operator, it means that you have to ensure your AML CFT frameworks remain current, risk aligned, because what works for one might not work for the other. So you need to do risk assessment on your business and to make sure that you have the right frameworks in place, the right documentation in place. And you have to be responsive to change rather than static or purely document driven. So now we're looking more at effectiveness. We're out of the grey list. We have documents in place, that's good. We have frameworks in place, but now we have to show how effective are we? How effective is your organization towards AML CFT, to the threats or the challenges that these things bring up? So that is what you're going to have to look at. And for me, the solution will always be compliance as a culture. You have to talk about ownership and integration. So you have effective frameworks that require risk-based decision making across business, transaction monitoring that align to operational realities. So like I've always said, what works for A does not work for B. We cannot decide what we would use for a huge betting organization as to someone who is maybe just strictly online or only
Right.
operates in one state. Your risk realities are different. So that is why the risk-based approach is very, very, very important. And so we must not treat compliance as an isolated thing, because that means your risk would accumulate quietly. And when compliance is embedded as a shared responsibility, risks are identified earlier, they are managed more effectively, they're escalated appropriately, and ultimately, strong AML CFT culture supports business continuity, reputation, and long-standing sustainability. So what I will say to you in conclusion is be more risk approach. You have to be risk-based approach in what you do. You can't just be documentally approach. You have to make compliance a culture that is a shared responsibility across all departments. And even the law says so. When you look at Section 10 of the Money Laundering Act, it says everybody must be trained so they are
Yeah.
aware of the risk that's placed to the organization. Once you have those two things in place and you have effective documentation or procedures for you to now effectively report or to better escalate transactions, then I feel that you are in the best place moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. So essentially, right now, focus is on effectiveness. We have transcended the level of drafting the policies. It is how effective we can implement them. Now, I just will have a question with respect to timeline, particularly in the gaming industry. And I'm going to drill down to the KYC process, because this is, one area that the operators seem not to have 110% control. Rather, it is dictated by the market and consumer behaviors. For instance, one of the requirements for AML or KYC rather is the submission of documents and verification of customers prior to engaging in businesses. However, we find a situation in the industry where, because of the nature of gaming, most players, the consumer comes on the platform, basic registration, don't ask me questions at that point. And operators are sort of, as a way of complying with the AML requirements, they're shifting the timeline for carrying out KYC and verification from the point of registration to the point of maybe payment or withdrawals or requests for winnings by the customers. And this is something that, I guess is peculiar just to the gaming industry. Could you highlight for us, what are the inherent risks, if any, in this approach, and to what extent this is acceptable, in risk management?
Okay. You're very right. The law clearly says that in respect to KYC, it's KY knowing your customer is an ongoing process. Beginning, during, after. You're
Mm-hmm.
required to know your customer constantly. The biggest challenge I say with gaming operators, you have definitely highlighted, is trying to manage revenue in terms of and in terms of regulatory compliance. And this is where technology comes into place. When you have the right technological tools, it becomes easier. For example, we all know that right now, if someone gives you your telephone number, it's easy to verify because most telephone numbers are linked to people's national identity. So if you have but you need to have the right technology. If you don't have the right technology, it will be hard for you to verify who it is you're dealing with. In regards to suspicious transactions, we all know that you can have a suspicious transaction in terms of a transaction happened, but you can also have an activity a suspicious activity, and you're bound by both, all your regulators and the law to report suspicious activities as well. So that is why emphasis is placed on ongoing onboarding and is a continual process. So the only solution to this is making sure you have the right technology in place so that you can better do your KYC and make sure you are above board with regulations and the law. So if you have to invest. Gaming, any sort of business right now, you must invest in proper technology to safeguard your businesses.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I see the questions coming in, but let's go round our speakers and then we'll come to the questions from the participants. Now, Adedoye, I'm coming to you now. Let's talk tax and taxation and tax reforms. This is the one that has been giving many of us sleepless nights, and we're glad to have you here to shed a bit more light on it, particularly with the new tax laws, primarily the Nigerian Tax Act, and of course, to an extent, the withholding tax, the deduction of withholding tax regulation. Now, from a tax and compliance perspective, what are the key risks, particularly for gaming operators, around related party transactions, capital gain exposure, artificial arrangements, deductions that are allowable or not, that feature very prominently in the Nigerian Tax Act. So we would like for you to highlight these risks for us. Also, the powers that the tax administration grants to the tax authorities, to reclassify, forgive me if I'm using the wrong expression, but to reclassify your, your financial line items and to disagree with your classification such that at the end of the day, your taxable income increases. I mean, can you run us through what to expect, how to manage these risks, and how to manage them potentially? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Fadeke. Please confirm you can hear me loud and clear.
Very clearly, you can.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Of course, the reason why the tax authorities are very interested in related party transaction is just to avoid profit shifting, right? Based on the OECD guidelines of 2022 and also the transfer pricing regulation in Nigeria in 2018. So the key risks are the arm's length requirements, right? The law requires that any related party transaction, right, must be done at arm's length. And what do we mean? It means if you compare that same transaction, right, with independent companies that are not related, right, and you look at those transactions and they are similar in all respects, right, the pricing between those related parties must be very similar to that of those independent parties that carry out the same kind of transaction, right? And this is provided under the OECD guidelines and under the Nigeria transfer pricing regulation. Because if not, the tax authority has been given the power, according to those regulations and OECD guidelines, to adjust the profits, the taxable profits, to reflect that arm's length pricing. So, which means we all know that within the gaming industry, there are lots of related party transactions. And the reason for that is that most of the technology architecture or the platforms used by the gaming industry are not sourced in Nigeria, right? Most of them are provided by their parent companies who are non-resident in Nigeria. So which means they charge the gaming companies resident in Nigeria fees, right? And which, of course, they are going to record in their financial statements. So the tax authorities are interested in the pricing of those fees for the technology and platform, right? So For gaming operators, the risk can arise where the group entities, whether the parents, right, charge fees or transfer intellectual properties, right, into Nigeria, and those fees that is charged must reflect a arm's length price. If not, this will be characterized by the tax authority by adjusting the numbers to mirror what independent parties should charge. So, for example, if your parent company may be based in the UK, it's charging you for a platform, let's say $200,000, right? The gaming companies, right, even before they set up that agreement, they set up that fee with the parent company, they need to do a proper ticket policy and benchmarking. And benchmarking will mean that you need to compare what independent parties will charge for that similar technology or platform, right, between each other. Once you can do the benchmarking and you charge the parent company charge price with looking at those benchmarking prices between independent parties, and they are very similar, then you don't have any risk. So you need to assess the benchmarking in terms of your TP policy to ensure that you do a proper benchmarking to ensure that those prices reflect arm's length price. If not, this can be adjusted, and the gaming operators can be exposed to additional tax liability. And I must also say that currently the tax authority are doing aggressive TP audits. In fact, I just completed one recently last week, and they are very, very aggressive on the TP audits, right, to ensure that all pricing between related parties within gaming companies reflect arm's length price. So the onus is on the gaming authorities to demonstrate that the transfer pricing outcomes are also commercially justified. What the tax authorities will also do, they will do a benefit test, right, to show that, okay, is the gaming company in Nigeria really getting any benefits, right? So if a parent company has charged me an amount, okay, what is the benefits? Is it not that hope is not that they're just charging that fee? They have to do a benefit test. And when the transactions are not commercially justified, then they might need to characterize those transactions or even disallow that expense. So, for example, if you have booked, let's say, 2 billion naira into your OPEX or into your OPEX, right, and the FIs come and you're able to justify that 2 billion in your OPEX, they can disallow that 2 billion and it can result into additional tax liabilities, right? So there have to be a sufficient transfer pricing documentation, right, by the gaming operators. And the documentation, if you want to do a benchmarking currently, you have various softwares you can use to do your benchmarking so as to prevent adverse adjustments, penalties or interest, because of course, if the additional tax payable, it comes with penalties and interest. And I must tell you, on tax remarks now, the interest is always compounding. So if the FIS is doing, or the NRS as they are called now, is doing a tax audit from 2018 till date, and there's a additional tax liability from 2018, the interest will be cumulative from 2018, and it's even a contentious issue within the industry, within the their disputes
Tax community.
within tax community and with the NRS currently. Now, the other issue we also have is the intra-group cost and recharges, right? We know that most of the time there are so many shared costs within the gaming operators, right? And for example, like platform hosting, formulated entities, where the same platform is used by different subsidiaries, and the parent company will need to share those costs. We also have licensing and branding fees, right, which are charged by the parent companies. So all this pricing, everything needs to be benchmarked to ensure that they are at arm's lens. So what are the mitigating, what are the things you need to do to mitigate against this risk? There have to be strong transfer pricing policies and documentation supporting intergroup rates, functions, assets, and risk. And in your documentation, you need to show you need to do your economic analysis, right? You also need to do your function analysis. By function analysis, you need to determine the assets utilized, right? The risk, right? And the functions performed by those parties. So that's that on related party transactions, right? On the capital gains, right? So we all know that currently capital gains rate has been increased to 30%, right? And there are so many other changes that's gone on within the capital gains space. So, of course, the NT has broadened the taxable gains to include wide range of categories of assets, including digital and virtual assets, and also intangibles. And we also have this one that has been generating a lot of issues. Capital gains tax charged on indirect transfers of shares, right? Where Nigerian companies are now within the tax nets, meaning that where there are offshore share disposals, right, that effectively transfer economic interest are now taxable under the NTA. So what matters most for gaming companies is to always assess, right, the restructuring where assets are held via group companies or offshore vehicles. They also need to look at the sales of licenses, right, intellectual properties or platform assets that are being classified as chargeable assets. So we also need to also look at that. And of course, we all know that even before the tax authority applies the 30% on the capital gains, there are some allowable expenses that you can utilize. So you also need to assess all those expenses, ensure that all the available expenses that you can get are used to reduce the exposures, right? So I think those are the other. So the other area I think you asked in terms of disallowed deductions, right? So with the new Nigerian Tax Act, right, the Nigerian Revenue Service will be very aggressive in terms of third-party documents, right? So we need to ensure that there are proper documentations for any expenses that you are recognizing in your financial statements, right? If you've recognized a particular amount in your financial statement, you have to get documents to back them up. You need to have agreements to back them up. And one of the other things the NTA has provided is that if you have an expense and maybe through services or you've purchased goods or items, you need to ensure that the vendor has included VAT on that invoice. Once there's no VAT in a vendor's invoice, right, that expense would be disallowed for tax purposes, right? You also need to look at when you are making cross-border payments, withholding tax needs to be deducted if it's applicable, right? Where there's cross-border payments, if, for example, you are paying your parent company for licenses, you need to ensure that you have deducted the appropriate withholding tax elements, because if not, such expense will be disallowed for tax purposes, right? And of course, you can always get the appropriate withholding tax rate also by looking at the recently gazetted withholding tax regulation of 2024. And also, if you are looking at all those cross-border payments, you need to ensure that there are proper agreements speaking to those expenses to ensure that you don't run the risk of those items being disallowed. Because as I mentioned earlier, once an expense are disallowed and it results to additional tax liability, you need to pay also the interest elements and penalties, of course, which creates further financial burden to the gaming operators. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. In fact, there's so much to unpack in that, your presentation. Essentially, key takeaway, whatever agreements, transactions we're entering going forward, it has to be comparable. It will be subject to the reasonable man's test, I guess, objectivity test. Would it be the same for other parties? Also, tax authorities are big on transfer pricing. One thing, the key takeaway with this new law is that payment, cross-border transactions are under scrutiny. So documentation, very key. And even your documentation, you have to ensure it complies with the rules such that the tax authority does not administer its powers to reclassify your transaction, to increase the taxable profit. And also this issue of penalty. I mean, like I said, there's so much to unpack. Perhaps one of the things we will do at SLEC Africa is have a session dedicated, to this tax and tax matters, so we can explore it deeply. I know that we're supposed to talk about the internal control matter, but let me quickly go to Gbemi so that we can touch on withholding tax first, right? And if time permits, we'll come back. Otherwise, like we said, we'll organize maybe a follow-up session for this. Now, Gbemi, I'm coming to you here, because at the state level, for state taxes, the one that truly really concerns us, this withholding tax, particularly the one that targets the industry, withholding tax on commission, on player winnings, on agents commission on player winnings. I mean, being somebody who is also knowledgeable and has been in this industry for a while, I mean, there are concerns about the implication at the end of the day for gaming operators who are dealing with these players and agents, and also third-party service providers. What control should operators put in place to ensure compliance and minimize exposure at this point? What should we be looking at?
Thank you. Kindly confirm you can hear me now.
Yes, we can, clearly.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I would say for the new tax reform and the withholding tax winning, a lot have been said, and I understand even the states are now ready to collect withholding taxes after a year. That's about a year after its implementation. I think everything is getting ready now. But in practice, the exposure for gaming industry does not come from the company's income tax as it is now, because we are now introducing the withholding tax on winning, which is not what we used to have before. We have the personal income tax too, and what needs to be done by operators to not to mix personal income tax with withholding taxes. There are some operators that operate on contract basis. Are these taxes supposed to be under withholding tax or under personal income tax? So those are the things that should be the operators should be worried about now, and that means that when we talk about the players winning, and I understand also that there is a threshold now. There is a threshold on the winning. I don't know how, well, maybe by the time they come out with the regulation, we should be able to know what the threshold is. And there's also the difference between the online, the working, I think the physical and the online, which one should be subject to the withholding taxes. So for now, for me, the risk there is that I suggest operators should keep separate account for their retail and the online, so that they will be able to show regulators that this is our online transaction, this is our offline, which is not subject to withholding tax. There should be KYC, your KYC now. I think Madam Folashade said it. KYC is important now. And TIN, the issue of TIN registration. For now, I don't know how the state will do about the TIN, but the withholding tax regulation said if you don't have a TIN number at the point of payment, instead of deducting 5%, let's say 5%, the person is we're supposed to get we're supposed to deduct 5% withholding tax. You should deduct double. I don't know how that will work on the winnings. So those are the risks. We should, by now, we should be telling our the pointers that there is need for your team registration, because if for example, if you win 100 naira and you are not providing thing, the law says it's 200 naira that should be deducted. So those are the risks attached to all this. And the onboarding, like I said, the valid thing, and there should be contract. We should be able to, our contract should state what the taxes are. If you are engaging a third party, maybe your software providers and everything, if you are engaging them, the contract will say that in Nigeria, we have a withholding tax that is maybe 10%. You have to register 14. And I understand that FRS now, if you have our third-party providers that are non-Nigerian, you are still, even if you don't have thing, you still have to register. You still have to, you have to register, but if you don't have the thing, you as an operator have an account. You should register maybe an account on behalf of that operator that you will pay that money to. Because by the time they are coming for audit, they are not coming for the vendor, they will be coming for you because you are the one that is making the payment. So for me, the risk is much, but what I would just advise is that for companies, your compliance check should be on monthly basis. Don't wait till the end of the year the way we do it before. Compliance should be monthly basis. You should be at forefront, because whatever you miss this month, you may not know till the time the tax authority come for audit. And it will the penalties, like Mr. Adedoyin said, it's always like on daily basis or monthly basis. So if you check your documents now, it is better than going on and adding penalties to penalties. And we should do it, like I said, reconciliation, tax audit trail. Your tax audit trail should be very, very clean now. And this saves time. It saves a lot of time for operators if you are able to get your compliance ready, top notch, because that is what the tax authority, and you know how tax authority, they are more interested in you making a mistake so that they will charge you penalties and interest. And that is where they have targets too, and you won't blame them. So that is all I will say for now. If you have further questions.
Right. Thank you very much for that. Very interesting that you raised the issue of classification of employees and workers right now, whether they fall under the personal income tax or rather the PAYE tax bracket, or maybe their services will be classified as taxable under the withholding tax regime. So that's one very key thing that operators should endeavor to clarify going forward. Now, this education of punters and then this double taxation for the ones that don't have that don't have NIN or tax identification number. I'm going to come to you now, Bimpe. I see you already smiling. I saw you taking notes copiously as the experts were were updating us on what to expect and how to expect. I see Mr. Akodeto, I'm coming to you, but let's come to Bingpe first. I mean, with all this regulatory, starting from what the industry regulators said, what to expect going forward, the taxes that are coming, the personal, at the player level as well. What are the key operational adjustments that we should be making? Where do we even start from? The disparities, there's so much to unpack. So what should we prioritize right now to ensure that businesses remain compliant whilst they are also efficient and commercially viable at this point? What do we do?
Right. Thank you, Fadike. And like you mentioned, a lot has been said. I mean, Mr. Jide, who is our regulator, and of course, beyond just Oyo State, FSGRN as well, And I'll say congratulations on the president doing away with the central e-gaming bill. He said a lot. Folashade has said a lot too in terms of AML compliance, KYC. Adedoyin a lot on the new tax act, especially regarding cross-border transactions. And I know that a majority of organizations, if not all of us, the truth is all of us actually are dealing with, one or more companies outside of Nigeria. So I'll say the first thing that every operator should start to prioritize now first will be in the place of personnel, especially for international companies who probably are domiciled outside of Nigeria and have not, really localized their operational strategy, because I know there are some who just maybe have contact center and all within Nigeria, and every other thing is being controlled outside. A lot is going on this year. You can be sure that there will be aggressive compliance drive on this tax. You can be sure of that. So now is not the time that you want your tax person maybe fully seated outside of Nigeria and just interpreting the law as, maybe they know it to be in much more developed countries. It is very important at this time to have experts seated within Nigeria who can sit down, analyze these things, interpret it, and when the tax authorities come, that they have that understanding, the expertise to be able to deal with them on one hand, and two is to be able to properly advise the company as well, so that whatever you are doing is in line with what the law expects or what the law wants it to be. Truth is, I'm also not unaware that with this tax law, even the tax authorities will find ways, extra ways to levy additional taxes, and that's the truth. So this year is really going to be a long one for us, but on one part, that's my advice to operators. The second one, as Mr. Jide, Mr. Jide said a lot in terms of industry regulations for the FSGRN. We've seen how much they've proposed as annual taxes for sports betting license, casino license, the number of member states in the FSGRN, which is 26, and we know that we have 36 states. So meaning that we have some who are clearly still not members of the FSGRN. Now, every operator, again, maybe this will not, I know this will not be an issue for the likes of Bet Naija, Bet King, who are into retail operations prior to now. They actually have been dealing with the states. But for online operators, another thing you need, important thing you need to have done like yesterday is to geolocate. You want to be sure that you are able to capture, the location of the players, because right now we're in this situation where we'll be dealing, with various state regulators, because all of them too will be asserting regulatory jurisdiction. From what Mr. Jide has said now, even the FSGRN is only stopping at the place of licensing, which is the very minimum issue we would have, around dealing with regulators, and that's the truth. The important one is actually the monthly gaming taxes, and you can be sure that every state regulator is going to be coming after every operator at this point. So for any operator that is here to geolocate, you want to do that immediately. Not even just for compliance, basically for compliance. And another reason being that I know someone mentioned, there's a question, already regarding that, saying some operators saying, anyway, most of my operations, 80% is in Lagos State, and the fact is, because I am online does not mean that I am operating across 26 or 36 states. This is the fact. But again, like I said, FSGRN, can sit down to, a lot of these, and the truth is they have to work to come together and maybe push out some laws, that will work for everyone and all. But truth is, there are certain things that have been done based on assumptions. So if we are going back to them, we should also go back to them with facts, because the truth is that because some operators are online does not mean that their operations is spread across. But if we don't geolocate and are coming to them with the facts of that, it is hard to convince them that this is the reality. Another advantage of geolocating is even when you are operating within a state, or say we have a customer within the state, because you don't have factual evidence to present, they can come to you and be like, oh, you are owing me this much. Because a lot of regulators assume about the industry just based on BetNiger transaction, based on how big BetNiger is. It is true, and I'm saying that for a fact.
Please don't throw us under the bus. Don't throw
I'm
any
not
brand
throwing,
under the
I'm
bus.
not throwing, no, I'm not throwing BetNiger. I mean, like, but because why I say that is, if you've had transactions, and Mr. Akode can, say this for a fact as well. We've had conversations with some state regulators, even prior to now. The figures they throw around, I mean, I kid you not, is because they're just in BetNiger shops, Bet King and all that. And the reality is that not every operator is like that. And now it's a new regime from those who were just strictly online, who were dealing with just the NLRC at that point in time. So for operators that fall within that bracket, it is important, to geolocate again, so that when the industry is making a case, there is factual evidence to approach, these regulatory bodies with. I mean, they are reasonable people. We know them. When we come with facts, they are also not interested in more like destroying the industry. They are here because operators are here. So that's on one part. The other thing I would, say to any operator as well, if no operator has done that, is if you are not a member of the Operator Association, that's Association of Nigerian Bookmakers, this is not the time for you to do life alone, quote and unquote, because you probably will be in serious trouble. So my advice to such operators would be, you want to be with, the association at this point in time. There'll be a lot of, discussions with various regulators. And now is the time for us to be unified. Now is the time for us to have unified positions, to approach the regulators. Within the gaming space, we know that there are some of the state regulators who are well informed about how the industry works. Lagos State, for instance, Mr. Jide, or your state, for instance, they have some understanding of the industry. They even know where it bites, that they can't deny, because over the years we've had close relationships with them. Which takes me to another point of what we need to do now, and this goes to the association. The association needs to be much more strategic. Like I said, there are so many other state regulators who really don't know, what the industry is about, who have no idea that there are certain, policies that is capable of completely wrecking the industry. We cannot wait for them to come to us. We need to actively now start to proactively engage with the states. I know there are engagements ongoing with FSGRN as well, but it is important as well to, educate these state regulators more, so they understand what it is that our challenges, what our plights are, because, at the end of the day, as much as we want to be compliant, it is also important that the businesses continue to be a going concern. So in a nutshell, I mean, I'll just stop at that and
Thank you. I know that once we get to the operators where they know where the shoe pinches, and that's when the fireworks will start, and indeed it has started. One thing you have highlighted is that licensing is the barest minimum, and that is what the Federation of State Gaming Regulators are offering. There are other issues of standardization of operations. What obtains in state A will it also obtain in state B, particularly as it concerns matters of responsible gaming, as it concerns operational matters of location of retail outlets and all. And you did mention, very important, you see the associations, Lottery Operators Forum, Association of Nigerian Bookmakers, you have no idea the work that goes on behind the scene. It is very important that you are connected. This is not the time to be alone. No man, no industry can succeed, with an individualistic approach. We all have to collectively approach this issue. And this brings me to Adewale Akonde. I know that you sit on the working committee. Yeah, Mr. Jide, we'll come back to you. Oh, I have lots of questions for you, so we're coming back to you shortly. But I just want to get Adewale Akonde's input. I mean, from an association level, you have sat on these matters, we have deliberated, we have gone far and wide, engagements with government, with regulators on different matters. I mean, we're talking about, in fact, someone was suggesting, can operators absorb withholding tax for their agents, and can they absorb it for their players? Given all of these tax reforms, how much more can the operator absorb? So my question to you actually is, what are the challenges or unintended consequences that are emerging, from all of these regulatory changes and evolving tax policies that are coming up? For instance, we've got a situation whereby withholding tax now applies to certain operations and doesn't apply to certain operations. On winnings, withholding tax, the deduction of withholding tax on winnings, right? That applies to certain operators, not to all operators. The issue of NIN, that's also something we should be talking about. Unintended consequences. The tax act is made for all of us as Nigerians. However, our industry, the peculiarities of our industry means that perhaps implementing some of these policies may give rise to things like remote operators, with payments being open the way it is currently today, with all the fintechs springing up. Where do we go? What are the consequences that are emerging from these policies? And how will it reshape our obligations and exposure as gaming operators?
Okay, thank you, Fadeke. And I thank every speaker who has spoken before now. Please, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. And I also thank all the participants who have connected to this webinar. All right. Thank you. I may have to digress a bit in view of some of the comments that have been made by the previous speakers. Let me start with Honorable Olajide. I'm not taking you on, sir, but just a point, something that one of the things that may, one of the challenges that we may have in the course of the year. Let's look at the issue of the universal license. Yes, it's going to help operators a lot. Instead of having to renew your license in 26, 27 states or thereabout. Of course, it's not all the states that require you to get license. That's why I'm saying 27, 28. Yes, but now it's good. Let's have a universal license. Once you make payments, you are done. You are fine in all those 26 states, as opposed to having to make payments, apply for license in all these states. But what is the legal basis for this universal license? These are some of the things we need to look at. What's the legal basis? Is there any law that is backing it? As of today, there is no state that has passed any law to back this universal license. We are going to have people that will challenge the issuance or non-issuance of this universal license in the course of the year. So it's a challenge that, as an operator, we need to look at. And then in the course of last year, when we were discussing, the last time I remember we actually discussed this, I think it should be around October or so. The assurance we had was that the 100 million naira the operators would pay will be for both the sport betting license as well as the add-on casino license. But that is contrary to what I have heard here today. It means the operators will have to pay 200 million naira now, going by what Honorable Lajite said. But, well, we will still come to that. That is like Olabimpe said earlier. Licensing is, it's a minimal, it's very minimal in what operators need to operate. What comes after licensing? It's actually bigger than, it's bigger, far bigger than the licensing issue. Now, from what Honorable Lajide also said, he said they will be increasing the good cost fee by 400%. From 2.5% monthly good cost fee that we currently pay, operators will now be paying 10%. That is 400% increase. What is the basis for this increase?
400% increase from where? From where do you get 2.5 from, Wale?
Yeah, it's 2.5% good cost fee that
It's from
operators
where?
have been paying, 2.5%.
To who? From where?
To the states, to the states.
No,
Sir,
you don't pay 2.5% to me in your state. 2.5% from where? Where did that come from? Is what I'm asking.
2.5% of GGR. Sorry, let me
Comes from
be
where?
clear.
I mean, what law
Okay,
tells you that we're
Honorable
supposed to pay 2.5?
please, let him,
No, I had to interrupt him on that because 2.5% that
okay,
he's
he
talking
will
about is
clarify,
not. There's no legal basis for that anywhere.
Actually 2.5 is being paid. He will clarify
Okay, then. So
which
there's no
regulatory
2.5. He's not
authority
paying
it is being
2.5 to
paid
me.
to. Agreed. Please, let's just so that let him go through his points and then we'll come back and you can react. Of course, we'll get your reaction, to what is being said. As a matter of fact, we have a number of questions for you, in the chat box. Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. All right. So thank you, Honorable Lajite. I can understand your position. Yes, there will be clarification as in the course of my submission. So, as I was saying, assuming operators have not even been paying 2.5%, is it the same operator you now want to say, all right, pay 10%? So, and I don't know how this is going to work because everybody that is in this business, those who have put money down to set up their operation, they are doing it. They are not doing it as for the Christmas. Coincidentally, we just had Christmas few days ago. They are doing it in order to make profit. And if we are paying 10%, I'm very sure many operators might go under. Yes, one or two operators, a few operators might probably struggle to comply, but there is a need. In essence, what I'm trying to say is there is a need for the Federation of State Gaming Regulators of Nigeria to have a second look at this. They need to have a second look at this. 10%. Well, I'm not speaking for all the operators, but well, I may not be speaking for my organization, the organization where I work to, but the fact is the 10% might not work. It might actually the business. It has happened in other states. It has happened in Kenya and many other countries. But so that's one of the challenges that we envisage. And also, we have spoken a lot about withholding tax on winnings that is due to commence. We've had a lot of challenges on this, and this is going to affect many operators in the course of the year. Not because the operators do not know the contents or the provisions of the withholding tax regulations, not because they do not want to comply, but because the regulatory authorities, as well as the tax authorities, have chosen, probably deliberately or unintentionally, they've chosen not to understand this regulation. Deliberately, I want to say deliberately, because when you attend engagement with them, you point out this is the provision. For instance, a few months ago, a state sent us a demand notice asking for billions of naira in withholding tax on winnings for just a couple of months. And we were asking them, what is the basis for this money? Can you give us the statistics? They said, no, they cannot give us the statistics. All right, let's make our own presentation. Let's show you what we actually have, the winnings that we have in the course of this month. They said, no, you cannot show us what you have. So we are going to have challenges from the tax authorities, and we need to prepare for that. And I think A and B, I know we've been discussing this, and luckily Bimpe is here, Fadika is here, and a few other people who, and I want to believe the ANB Executive Secretary Proye is also on this call. Yeah, we need to do more as an association. I know we've been planning that. We need to enlighten number one, the tax authorities across the length and breadth of Nigeria, the gaming regulatory authorities across Nigeria. There are a lot of misconceptions about this industry that we need to let them know what is actually happening. The fact that somebody or somebody credits his account with 500 naira, and then in the course of playing, he has turned the money over to, let's say, 500,000 naira, and then at the end of the day, he lost everything. And you want us to give you 5% of the winnings he had accumulated, which he had lost just within a space of a few hours. So we need to have a sit down with all these people. So these are some of the challenges we are going to have, and then of course, Mr. Adedoyin had spoken a lot, and then Madam Bimi, they've spoken a lot about the new taxes. I don't need to speak more on that, but it's very important for us as operators. Documentation, I know emphasis has been laid on documentation. Whatever we do, we must ensure that we have proper documentation for everything that we do. It's going to help us a lot in the course of the year. It will help us. So these are some of the things that some of the challenges that we might face in the course of the year, and how to tackle some of them. And as Bimpe said earlier, we cannot overemphasize this fact.
Right.
Please, one tree cannot make a forest. If there is a demand notice issued on you and you do not understand, that is why we have ANB. Contact the ANB Secretariat. The ES is a fantastic person. She's always willing to help and assist. Even if she does not understand, she will engage other people in the industry and get you the details that will help you. Don't fight this alone. Let it be our collective effort. Let me stop for now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that recap of the contributions of the experts. As we can see and as we can tell, it's about to be a year of clarification, let me put it that way, for most of the proposed proposals to be implemented successfully for the gaming industry. So we have a few questions. People have been dropping their comments and questions in the question section. I'm just going to go through some of them, and I'm going to come to you first, our dear regulator. We have questions around the existing licensees. Some of them have 5-year license. How does that work? What does that portend for them? What would be their situation with this once this URL kicks off and is implemented, what happens to their license under that framework. And again, someone is saying that when the proposal for URL came initially, it was supposed to be optional. It was supposed to be an alternative, but now it seems like it is mandatory and it is compulsory. It would be good for you to address that. Also, in his submission, Adewale Akode raised the issue of legality and legitimacy on, which is probably one of the grounds that this URL, one of the things that needs to be clarified around the URL. The floor is yours.
Thank you so very much again. I think for some reason, as regulators, we're the ones that's been thrown under the bus to take the brunt of this discussion. Lots of questions to be answered. I think under the Nigerian Constitution, I can't remember what section, particularly you're a lawyer, there's freedom of association. FSDRN has come together under one umbrella by agreement, such as associations like Pengasan and all others, associations I can remember, to say, okay, this is what we want to do together. And if you have an association, you have the right to come up with your own regulations and framework of how you want to operate. I believe that this is something that they should want to embrace as operators. Prior to this, a company like Bet Nigeria, Bet King, get licenses from the proscribed NLRC, and they still get licenses from Lagos. They get licenses from Ogun. They get from Oyo, and they go. Because they want their business not to be unshaken. But in this case, we are saying that you raise the issue of legality. Yeah, it's legal. Because it's very legal in the sense that we're an association that has come there and we're under an agreement. We signed SROs amongst ourselves that makes us one body to say that, okay, this is what we want to do. And it's not like, yes, the states that are not part of us, they have their own thing that they want to do. If somebody state like Ekiti is not part of us, let me put that out there. But I don't think that is to the joy of the chief executive of the state. It's just because he doesn't know. To be honest with you, the one individual that is the chairman of the gaming board there, or whatever they call it, that used to work with LRC, just happens to be one strong-headed individual that is misguiding the state and the attorney general and the commissioner for finance. But because me, I don't mind my words. So that's
they also have freedom of association, not to
exactly
not to
so
associate.
that is good. Well, absolutely, but you have to have the buy-in of who has appointed you. You have to make sure that my own governor now understands what I'm doing. Before I join that association, I have permission from His Excellency Governor Seyi Makinde to be part of that association. But if you don't carry your chief executive along, he won't be able to give you the guidance or the kind of approval that you need.
Right. Okay. Can we go to the issue of existing licensees and what happens to their license under the URL? Or did we lose him? Okay, I think he's probably having network issue. Admin, please, if you can find out what's going on. I would move very quickly to Folasha Day. There's a question here around, now that Nigeria is no longer on the gray list, but with the advent of fintechs all over. Oh, you're welcome back. We'll be with you shortly. With the advent of fintechs and payment providers, payment solutions, cross-border transaction, what does that portend, for the gaming industry, generally in terms of the availability of these options and then, compliance issues? It seems like AI, the advent of AI, machine learning, is making it possible for businesses to circumvent this, especially for the illegal operators.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Go
Okay.
ahead, please.
Like I said, and we've always said this, when we talk about compliance in terms of money laundering and terrorism financing, it is all about it being very dynamic. It is very dynamic. Sometimes it feels like as if the law is playing catch up. So, what I always say to people is that your technological component, it will act as a very strong safeguard for you. It will always act as a safeguard. So if you have the right parameters in place for your technology, or you have the right tools, the right technological tools in place, you will always be able to pick up on the red flags, or pick up, or be able to, the tools be able to signal you to picking up on the red flags. So I say to everyone, whether big or small, try and find a technological tool that will be within your own capacity and will help you to implement your documentatory process and procedures for you to pick up on these red flags. If you don't do so, you will fall short and find yourself in consequences or in places where you wouldn't like at all. Another major thing I'd like to say is, based on all the information we're getting, whether it be tax, whether it be data protection, whether it be AML CFT, what is becoming quite clear is that on a management level, it is very, very important that management is aware and understands the risks involved. That being said, I would also say, this, like I said, is my personal, very much my personal opinion. You must have one of your board members to be compliance, a level of a compliance risk expert of expertise, whether it's AML, whether it's data protection, whether it's in any case tax. You have to have that risk component come from a board level. So when these situations happen, they're able to engage both at a high level and able to pass it down to the structure, both horizontally and vertically. And that is shown clearly in the law. The law states that your compliance officer has to be able to be independent, managerial level, and be able to do that communication. So it's very key. But I will also say, as it's coming along, as the laws keep on coming, it is becoming quite clear. On a governance level, you will need someone on the board that can speak at that high level to these issues. So technology is your friend. I know it's a heavy investment, but if you don't make that investment, you will end up being penny wise, pounds foolish. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for that. I'm back to you, Honorable Jide. We were asking a question. Are you with us? We were asking a question
Yeah, I'm
about what
here. Can you hear
happens
me?
with existing licenses. Yes, we can hear you now. Yes, what happens
Okay.
with those that have long-term licenses that are still valid, maybe for another couple of years?
Okay, so one of the things that I was going to actually suggest is I believe, from this conversation, as a condition of licensing going forward, I think every operator that wants to come on board should be a member of AMB. I think I'm going to suggest that to the secretariat, because this will actually help us to be able to capture everyone that is within um, a region, to know who we're dealing with. So take for instance now, if you're saying that you have a 5-year license that you have gotten in the past from the proscribed NLRC, please bring it aboard through AMB so that we have a one-on-one engagement with you as an operator. And it's one of the things that we have discussed. We will work with you and find a way to harmonize that, or bring that to bear, to where we give you some sort of a break, to where we can incorporate that into the existing framework that we have provided as far as URL is concerned. So that's not going to be an issue. But you will not continue to operate and say, "Oh, I have a 5-year license from NLRC." Of course, you are illegal if you're saying that. If you're not coming to board for you to, on board for to the secretariat and say, "Okay, this is what I have. What can you do for us?" And we sit down and have negotiations on what you are currently using to say your license. Because at the end of the day, Google recognizes us, Meta, Apple. Acon, we're signing an MOU with Acon, FCC, and all these other agencies. So there's nowhere for you to hide, really and truly.
Right.
You're saying that, oh, I have a license, then you won't be able to do business. I mean, if you're doing it, you won't be able to do it properly. So I think the leeway that I'm putting out there is for any operator that is listening to me on this platform, is for them to reach out to the secretariat and let us know what they have so that we can engage and find a way to mitigate whatever is going on with them. That's as far as that goes. What was the other question?
I think that was you have answered the questions, I believe. I believe
Okay.
you have answered the question. Madam Falashade, your hand is up. You have something to add to what he said? We have to do
Yes.
this quickly because now we have effectively run out of time. But yes, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I love what he said about going through your association. Yes, it's fantastic to go through your association, but I think it will be difficult to mandate people because he's already quoted the law of freedom of association. So you can't mandate anyone to come through the association. But yes, I think it's good to always say to people, you have to collaborate, to try and work with your association to move forward. The betting and gaming space is extremely complex because they deal with a lot of regulators. So I will say it and I will keep saying it. On your governance side, if you don't have key men as directors that are compliance experts or show a level of expertise, you will find it difficult. And I see that in a lot of gaming companies. There's a very high attrition rate as well. So if you don't have that on a management level, on a director level, that you have people there, this break in compliance will always be there, and the culture will not be able to be sustained. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have questions around withholding tax. Can the operator absorb this? Maybe I should put this one out there. Can the operators, Gbemi, would you like to take this one on behalf of the players or maybe the agents? Can operators absorb these taxes?
The fact is that the withholding tax regulation, the way it is now, it will not be advisable for operators to absorb it because it's going to be a huge amount. And if you are absorbing, what are you going to be submitting the names of your name as the beneficiaries of these withholding taxes? But if you want to absorb it, but for me personally, I would say it is not advisable. It's better you make it plain, because by the time you are absorbing it now, maybe you absorbed it in the first month, second month. What if there's a huge payout in maybe in the third month? Will you now start shifting it back to the pointers? It is better you get your system right, automate your system, let the system deduct automatically instead of you absorbing it. That's just my
Just
opinion.
thank you.
Yeah.
Just a point on that.
Yes.
We also have to understand that withholding tax is an advanced payment of tax. So if a operator is absorbing it, who benefits? You are just as if you are just giving the tax authority free money, because somebody should benefit from that withholding tax, because as an advanced payment of tax, it's not a final tax. So somebody should benefit. So if you are absorbing it, it means you are just giving the tax authority some funds, because nobody will be able to claim the credit at the end of the day. Thank you. Just thought I should include that.
Yes, very important. Very important. Thank you so much for that addition. Thank you for the contributions. Look, there's so much to unpack here. And the truth is, we cannot do justice to it in an hour, 30 minutes. Even just, the level of expertise on the panel alone is such that we can keep digging. We haven't even gone through half of the questions, especially around taxation, but I believe that we have provided sufficient information just for operators to know where to start and what we're dealing with. Just listening to all of the experts from regulatory to compliance to taxation, and also listening to the perspective of the industry. One thing is very clear. There's an elephant in the room. Many of us are blindfolded and we are only speaking from the perspective of what we feel. It's time to take off. We need to take off that blindfold and see the big picture. The regulators have got to understand where the operators are coming from. The operators have got to understand where the regulators are coming from. And the tax authorities too have got to start making adjustments and accommodations for the peculiarities of various industries. That is the reality, that we are faced with as we speak. The conversation will continue. We will definitely continue this conversation. It's not over because there's so much to unpack. One thing we will do is we would have a dedicated session to tax reforms and just understanding the implications, for the gaming industry. We will also do the same for AML and compliance issues. Having said that, we wouldn't want to take more of your time. Would like to thank every single person who has joined this conversation today. Would also like to thank our speakers, the panels. I mean, we don't take it for granted that when we call upon you, you respond. You share your opinion, you share your thoughts, you share your expertise with us. We truly appreciate you. Thank you very much. If you've got more questions, please send your questions. Feel free to reach out to to our panelists. They're all on LinkedIn. Follow us. For those of you who are interested, in when we organize these webinars, we do try to organize them at least once a month. Please follow us so you have updates, you have information. If there are matters you want us to discuss in this industry, gaming industry, sports, lotteries, e-gaming, and casino, we're here. We will definitely bring it on board. We note the exemption very clearly. I actually thought, the industry view would actually raise that the exemption of lottery category from this licensing, but we do not know what the justification is. Perhaps we would come and engage with the Federation of State Gaming Regulators as well, so that they can explain to us, what this exemption means and why they have taken the approach of licensing and
But I can
licensing
answer that right
only.
quickly, Fadike,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind. So, because lotto companies are very, very minimal, there are not a lot of them, and most of them are retail. So, we believe that since they are not really online, the Baba Jebus, the Golden Chance, I mean, they should just deal with the states where they're
States.
domiciled. That's just the
Okay.
simple answer. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for that. On that note, I'd like to thank everyone for your time and wish you a wonderful rest of the day and a great weekend as well. We'll see you again when we come your way. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. God bless you all.